special guest, Carolyn Murphy. Thanks for joining.
Of course.
Very excited to get started.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, we recently connected at another networking event in the city. Who did you know? Jared or Jared? Yeah. That's right. So we both met Jared and then got connected at his event.
Yes. Yep. And I've known Jared since college, and I hadn't seen him in years, so it was good to kind of reconnect.
That's right. Yes, I love that. Long lasting connections. Well, awesome. So we're gonna get started here. As people are joining, we are going to talk about Carolyn's journey into home ownership, buying a home, the good, the bad, everything in between.
Yeah.
And so we'll get started. So Carolyn, you bought was this the first house you ever bought?
First house. So
house.
Yep.
Okay.
So especially with how crazy the market is and everything else, it's been like we're staying put, but we're starting to kind of put our feelers out there. So we'll see.
Okay. Next house. But all right. So this was first house you ever bought, Coatesville, Pennsylvania, December 2014. So you're coming up on the 10-year mark of owning this home.
A decade and around Christmas time. My husband, he just said the date to me the other day too, and I forget the exact one, but it was like right before Christmas. So
nice.
Because I remember coming in ripping off my coat, laying on the floor and being like, I can't believe we have a house. So
I love it. that is the feeling when you buy your first house, I think. Even maybe it happens other times where you're just like, damn, wow, I can't believe I made it. This is mine.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And I don't know if it's it's like a weird American tradition, but all of my friends, I know that when the first night you're spending in your house and you don't have any furniture and you're just sitting on the floor with Chinese food and just taking it all in, that just seems to be a common thread, which is just a strange thing, but
that's true. That is part of the American dream. I think you have to have one night where you're you don't have any furniture. I did that my first house, sleeping bags, blankets on the floor. We're just gonna sleep here, no bed yet,
Exactly. Yeah,
it works. Well, tell everybody, what is your favorite part of your house?
My favorite part of my house is my neighborhood. So my neighbors are just so sweet. It's funny because you always picture I would love to have been in a neighborhood with a bunch of kids. But right across the street from us, we have this Army vet. We actually just celebrated his 70th birthday. He's amazing. But it's just one of those people that teaches you how to be a neighbor. So yeah, he takes our trash cans in for us, and there's days where I always try to do it for him, but he always gets to it first. So it's just one of those feel good neighborhoods. So that's one of the things I really enjoy.
Love it. How did you look at other neighborhood? Were you dead set on this neighborhood, or did you stumble into this neighborhood?
No, we definitely stumbled into it. So we knew Coatesville because I, at the time, was working an hour away in Lancaster because we were living in Westchester, and my husband works all the way in Delta. So it was kind of what's that halfway point where we both have an hour to a 45-minute commute, which is not the best, but I didn't want to live in the middle of nowhere. So we did settle on Coatesville, but we wound up stumbling on this, which was new construction at the time. So, and we left out, and this is something that I found out that's interesting. So if you're looking at a new construction neighborhood, as the builders are coming kind of towards the end and they're going to be closing out that neighborhood, you can tend to get some better deals on the homes, because a lot of times, and I don't know this to be 100% fact, so I don't know if you want to rely on this completely, but they have to generally, I think, close down a neighborhood before they can start a new project, is what I was
told. Maybe some of their funds are tied up or something. That would make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So that's why I'm speaking to it. But we were able to get the basement thrown in and the sunroom thrown in at the time because we were one of the last 3 houses.
Ooh, okay. So that's if you notice that, it could be very beneficial if you notice like there's not too many left versus like being the first to buy in the development.
Right. And then you're having to deal with like looking at construction and, you know, dealing with all of that. But it is good because you're kind of meeting people as they come into the neighborhood. So there's pros and cons, I guess. But yeah, we were happy with the fact that we were one of the last.
Nice. Okay, good helpful hint there. How did you go about now? You're beginning the process. You're both trying to find the place like in the middle of where you both work.
Mhm.
How did you go about finding and choosing your realtor to work with?
So our realtor and to this day we're still in contact with them because they're amazing. It's the Moore McGuire group from Keller Williams. So Allison did Zumba with my mom, and so I went to like a couple of the Zumba classes. Wasn't really my thing, but I got connected with Allison that way, and it was what was interesting is at the time I didn't realize that she was partnered with Brad Moore, who I knew from college, just like Jared. So Brad and Jared were in the same fraternity in college. It's like, 6 degrees all the way. So Allison was pregnant. So when she was showing us the houses and like we were kind of getting towards the end of choosing, she wound up having Eden, her baby, who's now we know on the timeline like close to 10 because
Same age as your house.
right, exactly. So she said, I'm gonna pass this over to my partner Brad. And I went, Brad Moore. I'm like, no way. So and it just so happened to be Brad, and he did it. So they kind of tag teamed it with me, and we couldn't have been happier.
Very nice. So it
Yeah.
ended up being somebody you had known, but you just went for a connection based on your mom doing Zumba with somebody.
Yeah, honestly.
Nice.
What did we just talk about? Like your network is your net worth.
Yes. So go to your network first. Go to the source of people you trust, especially your family. But then also like any tips for people as they are browsing around? Like did you kind of have like a consultation call, meet in person, like get a feel for who they were if you wanted to work with them or not?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I had kind of gotten to know Allison a little bit too before that initial meeting. So, but then once we did meet with her and we just kind of, she was so available, very transparent. And that was one of the things that, we were looking for and kind of just, we had never done this before. So, she just seemed to be very good with like first time home buyers and everything as well, which was awesome.
Nice. That is very helpful. And I've had someone say before when they were a first time home buyer that they would mention it all the time like, "Hey, just so you know, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Please give me information in a digestible way, like break it down for me. Don't feel like you're oversimplifying it because I want it. I want it that way." So just preface every conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cause it's almost like you don't know what you don't know at that point.
Right. So it's
So,
like, tell me, don't assume I know something.
right. So yeah, like going through the process of getting like, pre-qualified for, how much can we afford, right? Like what's that max point? And we kind of looked at that. And at the time, I mean, I'm in insurance now. So, and I've been in insurance for a very long time. But at that time, I had taken my 3-year sabbatical to teach 8th grade. So I like
Ah.
temporarily lost my mind and did that. But like,
Yeah, 8th graders.
yeah. I mean, really, I was like, I think I'm missing kids. And then 3 years later, I'm like, that's not what I was missing. But I wasn't making anything. I mean,
Yeah.
where I was teaching in particular, it was a school that, I think I was, and I'll just blurt it out. I think I was making like $35,000 a year. Like, and this was 10 years ago, but like I was making,
Yes. Still.
yeah, like, and my husband was working at the power plant and things like that. So because of him, they came out with this number and I'm like, how the heck can we afford a $400,000 house? Like, there's no way. So just because that was the number that they came out with, we had to talk and go, okay, what's the monthly payment going to look like? Let's really break this down because the last thing we want is to be house poor.
That's right. That's right.
So
And that's what always happens. Whenever I have initial calls with people, I say, "Look, I'm gonna give you the pre-approval. I'm gonna tell you what you're pre-approved up to. It's gonna be higher than what you're looking to spend almost every time because you're getting qualified based on your gross monthly income before taxes and deductions are taken out, and it's not accounting for your day-to-day budget, your Netflix subscriptions, your Amazon Prime, uh, how much you spend on your dog or your cat or your children. Like, it's not accounting for any of these other things in your budget. So so what we always do is, like, get the maximum number. But then we get on a call just like this where we're face to face and break down the numbers so that you can then say, "Okay, this is where I'm comfortable at." And there's two things we like to consider: the monthly payment, not even the price of the house, because price of the house, it's like you're not buying the whole house day one.
right.
It's what are you going to pay every month and what is your total cash that you're spending on day one?
Mhm.
Down payment, closing costs. What is that comfortable number and what is your comfortable monthly payment? Then we say, okay, your sweet spot, it's actually 375, not 400.
Right.
Like, and then you can kind of, so anyway,
Yeah.
break down like the timeline for you guys. So you get connected to the realtor through doing Zumba with your mom. And what were like the milestones and when were they happening? Like what was the next thing that happened?
So, and I'm like going back 10 years here.
I
So
know, I know.
yeah, like she said, like first just get pre-approved because we don't even want to kind of like start to look until you know what your price range is. So, um, at the time we kind of did that. We figured out like what we were comfortable spending, and then we started to look at houses from there. And at first we thought we wanted like a townhouse, and then we kind of went into maybe we don't want that, which my husband's lack of love for any changing anything at all. I'm super glad that we did wind up in a single family because because I'd still be in a townhome, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just like with two kids and everything else. It's and a dog. I'm glad that we had the space in the yard and everything like that at this point. So I would have loved to have started in a townhome, but
Mm.
we just kind of along the way decided to go the single family route.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how much time progressed from like was it weeks,
It
months for the
was like a couple months. I think it was about 2 months that it took us. I don't think we killed them too much as far as the number of houses we looked at. I think we maybe looked at 10 houses at most. Uh,
Okay.
and then we kind of settled on the new construction, which was easy because you kind of pick it and design it yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you got to customize some things in the house. It wasn't fully built yet when you were looking at it.
It was a piece of land.
Whoa. Oh
Hmm.
my goodness.
Yeah.
So how much did you get to design in there?
Like they give you all the different options as far as like, I forget what the word is for it. If I was a realtor, I would know, but it's like the images of the front. So you get to pick like
Oh, okay.
the look, and the only restrictions we really had was they didn't want your siding to match the siding of like the person next door.
Oh.
So other than that, I mean, we got to pick, do we want hardwood floors, which my child apparently all of a sudden is now obsessed with river dancing. So like the regret of the hardwood now is just
Bad.
I'm
Oh, shoot. You're like, "This is not scratch proof for my child to tap."
like, this is not a tap. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad there's enough space between the houses too, or else I'd probably. This is like where we're good not having a townhome, or I would have my neighbor wanting to kill me.
Right. Got some space in between your own land, your own yard.
Between the bagpipes and the tapping.
They'd be like, "What is going on next door?"
Yeah. Oh my God. So, but yeah, we got to pick the hardwood and like the color of the cabinets and the granite and all of that. So, if you are on your first home buying journey, and you're considering hardwood colors and you have a dog, I wouldn't go as dark as we did. So
Oh,
there. for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Consider, yeah, do you have a dog? Are you ever gonna have a dog? Are you gonna have kids? Like, are you gonna rent the house out?
Yeah,
How, like, these are things to consider, like, how long are you gonna be there? What's your game
yeah,
plan for the future?
yeah, and it's so silly to think like the color of your hardwood would play into that, but it sincerely does because you can see everything on it.
Mhm.
So things you
Okay.
don't know till you know.
Don't exactly, but hopefully the lessons are passed down from you to the next person.
Exactly.
True.
Yeah.
So how long was okay, so about 2 months, you looked at homes, you found this one. Now what was it like from going under contract until the day you got the keys?
So we went under contract in May, and then we moved in December. So,
Okay.
but I don't think they started building until maybe
Oh,
August.
right, this is longer because, yeah, you signed a contract to say, "Yes, we're gonna buy this house."
Yeah.
That doesn't exist yet.
Right.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
so it took longer, and then once but you had the regular things that people would get if they're buying an older house too, an inspection, an appraisal, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. They went through like once it was built, like went through and did the inspection and all of that as well. So,
Cool. Negotiating, like I mean, there's not gonna be, like, repairs or anything that you're negotiating. Was
uh,
there anything you negotiated during your inspection?
so yes, because there's contracts and stuff too for like um nail pops, things like that. So like if it's new construction like that as your house is settling, like if I don't even know if you can see it on my ceiling, but there's nail pops that we've had to like repair, and even 10 years later like there's one or two that just popped up within the past like 6 months that I'm like, "All right, I got to get the ladder up and
Oh, shoot. Okay.
but like yeah, so it that definitely happens. So knowing if something settles wrong or something goes wrong, like what are the things in place to make those corrections.
Okay, makes sense.
Hmm.
Now, to go back a little bit, what was, one of the more difficult parts of the process for you?
Hmm. That's a good question. So I guess picking what we didn't want to compromise on.
Ooh,
So because when you're looking at a house, like you have all these like wants on your list, and it's like, okay, if we have 10 wants, like what are the three that we can't do without? Like we want a really big kitchen because that just in my family at least, and I'm sure a lot of families, like that's kind of where you hang out the most, and it's that feeling. We wanted kind of an open layout. Even like there's so say like a walkout basement, right? Like maybe that's a want. Um, but is that something that's like gonna make or break your decision? So what are the things that are gonna make or break versus the things that, you know, you can live without?
absolutely. And
Yeah.
how did you go about prioritizing those categories? Because that if you nail that down, your decision making will be very easy and less stressful.
Yeah, it's true. So my husband and I kind of said like, all right, we're gonna we each agreed on the kitchen. So then it was like he had to have his must and then I had to have like my must.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, like, I wanted a decent sized basement, um, that was finished. He wanted a nice sized garage, because he is very into fixing up cars and doing all of that, and then we both said, like, that whole kitchen open layout. So those are kind of our 3 main things when we were looking at it.
Nice. So you
Yeah,
each got one and then you got one together. So you got 3 main categories that if it checks these 3 boxes, it's a highly considered, like, property for you
right. Mhm.
as you're going through it.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, and then you kinda narrow it down from there of, like, what's kinda secondary on your list.
Right. Now, if you get, like, a nice to haves, that's just a bonus.
Right. Yep.
That's good. That's really good. That's the number one thing people get hung up on, and it can be very overwhelming because there's
Yes.
so much every time, but it's like this if something's on the bottom of your priority list, that shouldn't be stopping you from making an offer on a home if
Yeah.
it checks all your other boxes.
Yeah, and if you have the right I feel like if you have the right realtor that knows what they're talking about and like can say, you know, this is because if you walk into a house and maybe it's not as like the open floor plan isn't what you thought it was, to be able to say, because I remember like before we went new construction and we were looking at other homes, it's like this wall can be knocked down, you know, and like having somebody that has that knowledge where you're able to kind of visualize it and you know,
That helps.
fun. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Having someone that's going to be there every step of the way with you, strategize and game plan, not just say, okay, it's black and white, yes or no. Like there's a lot of variables that can go
Yeah,
into the decision.
absolutely. Yep.
Were there, okay, now so you find the home, you sign the contract. Were there fees that you didn't expect along the way?
No, honestly, just because Allison was kind of really good about being transparent upfront about that, which
Great.
was amazing. Yeah.
Great. So even in the beginning, even in the beginning when like you were first having your consultation with the Allison, the realtor, the mortgage broker, or the mortgage lender, were there things that you were like, "Oh wait, I didn't know," like, or what is this that I have to pay for? Anything that like stood out?
I didn't realize, I mean, going into it before having the conversation, like I didn't
Yeah.
feel closing table. I don't want you to think that, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, exactly. Like day
I
one.
didn't realize how much closing costs were.
Mm,
So, and like, cause we kind of, I knew about the 20% down and like, you know, having that or whatever. But other than that, I didn't realize like the other fees and everything until it was kind of explained. But I wasn't sitting at the closing table surprised. The only thing I was surprised about at the closing table was how much paperwork there was to sign.
okay, okay. All
So,
right. That makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah.
But yeah, well, did you think you had to have 20% down?
No,
Or
I know
did
I didn't have to, but that was kind of what my expectation going in. And
okay.
probably had I had a relationship and talked to a realtor before we really were dead set on buying a house, we probably would have bought sooner because in my mind, I thought you had to have 20%
Right.
down.
Which isn't bad because now if you had saved 20% of the price of the home, you could just split off some of that to use for your closing costs.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
One
Cool.
of the things I think's interesting to point out, and you know, somebody that is going like you have PMI, right? Like you have that mortgage insurance. Like if you aren't able to put the full 20% down, because there's those options. What I didn't realize, and just being in the industry that I'm in, and it's something that's so important to point out, is once that 20% is reached, um, that PMI, some people are still paying it and they don't have to.
Yeah.
So you almost have to like be aware of it because no one's coming knocking on your door and going like, you no longer have to pay this.
That's
Like
right.
no one's telling you that.
I think it
So
won't fall off until like like you get to like 21 or 22% or something, then it will automatically fall off. But
okay,
in that time,
in
like
that
you
like
could have
yeah,
requested it right at like 19, 20% or something. Like you could be on top of it and request that it comes off.
right,
So don't
exactly,
waste the money.
yeah, because some people aren't like aware of that like gap.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah. So if you have mortgage insurance, which most people do now, especially now, they're not putting full 20% down. You can put 10% down, 15% down. It's not a big deal. I have mortgage insurance. It's $45 a month.
Okay,
It goes into my monthly payment. It's part of your monthly payment. I don't notice it.
yeah,
Eventually one day I won't have it anymore because I'll get to that 20% equity.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't even realize that it fell off automatically at like 22% because I've had conversations where it's like somebody's been paying it for a couple of years and it just never
Oh shoot.
came off. So
So that's good to check with your mortgage who you're making your payments to. Like
yeah,
what are the
does it automatically fall off at what point? Like, and even if you
yeah,
could just note it, knowing like what your payments are, you'd probably be able to figure that out pretty easily and just kind of note that and put a reminder in to
true.
get out of it. But
Exactly. Yeah, because your statements will tell you like check check how much your original amount was that you borrowed, but now how much do you owe still?
yeah, hmm,
And what's the difference?
yeah,
Do some
Yeah.
math, or just reach out to your people you worked with, your real estate agent, your mortgage lender, like, just ask them where you're at. They can
Yeah.
easily tell you.
Because I mean, $45 a month is $45 a month, right? You're
Yes, and it could be more for some people, so it's all different. So, yeah, it's definitely important. Good. Well, this is good. This is helpful advice and tips, for people. Last thing I always like to ask, why is homeownership important to you?
I don't know. You kind of just feel like I don't want to say I don't want to sound corny and like say the American dream, but I mean there you are, right? Like you kind of it's something that you own and it's yours and it just if you have pride in it and I don't know, it's a good feeling um to have a place that you can call home. And that no one can really take as long as you're making the payments, like no one can come out and say this isn't yours anymore, you know? So
Okay.
yeah, and building that equity piece too, that's a huge piece. So
Yeah. Why? Why? Talk about that a little bit.
and it was one of the conversations that my husband and I had like before buying because he's like, well, there's unexpected costs with home ownership that you're not considering. What if something goes wrong with the water heater or something goes wrong with this? But at the same time, if you're looking over the long term, like 10 years and like what the amount of equity that we have in our home at this point that had we been in an apartment, you know, sure, if the water heater broke and it was 10 grand, it would have been fixed for us. Absolutely. But that's nothing in comparison to what we've been able to build up over the past decade. Um, and be able to have that as part of our net worth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People forget the home. Someone, a friend of mine, and said it best. He was like, "I own this house." Like, it's crazy to think about every little piece that you own. Like, it's not just okay. You own a house, you have equity. What does that mean? The house is worth something. Like he's like every window. How much is that window cost? How much does all this furniture cost? I mean, obviously you own the furniture, but how much does the roof cost? The hot water heater, like you own these things. It's all builds up to this large asset that you own. It's worth value. And so like, yeah, if something breaks, you have to fix it, but you have value as the home itself is worth something. It's just like having money in the bank. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, and like being able to have, like the home equity line of credit,
Yes.
and like to have that personal access line, which was something, it's funny, like we just did that, I think a year ago. Um, so
Good.
like we have it now and if we need it, it's there. If we don't need it, we don't touch it.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have.
Exactly. It's the same way as any person having a credit card that they can swipe for up to $5,000 maybe is their limit,
Yeah.
but you can have the same thing, but the credit is coming from the value of your house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can use it for whatever you want. You can use it to make repairs. You can knock down that wall. You want it to make more open
Right.
space. You
Yeah.
can buy stuff with it, whatever you want.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's your money and that's kind of, it was like a cool thing that like I didn't even really think about just having it and having access to it.
Right.
So,
Right.
so yeah.
Nice. Okay. What are your plans for the next 5 years?
Um, it's a good question. So Coatesville they're kind of doing this whole like revitalization, they call it, of Coatesville. So they've gotten grants to like redo like the outside of a lot of the town, and there's restaurants being put in, and there's a train station going in 2025. So um, it, we're really up in the air right now. We don't know because we're just kind of seeing like, okay, what happens. Probably by the end of 2025, we're going to make a decision of either we're going to stick it out here or we're going to stick obviously in PA, and we like Chester County, but the school district right now is probably as you're climbing into the middle school, high school, leaves a little bit to be desired. And so I think that's,
Okay.
do we go private? And that's all the things that when we initially bought the house, we probably weren't expecting to be here having kids and everything. And here we are. Right. So I don't know. I don't
But
know.
that's okay, 'cause that will drive your next decision. So now going
Yeah.
back to what you said in the beginning, that's gonna be your main priority for the next house you buy. One of your main priorities might be where you send your kids to school because now you have that as part of your life, whereas you didn't before and you really cared about the basement and the garage, but now
Right.
it's like, "Oh, we care about those things, but we gotta add something in the priority list."
Yeah, like that now would take over in our top 3 as far as, the school district and probably a neighborhood that we're seeing kids in and, so like
Yeah.
right, like yeah, your priorities change from your early to mid 20s to
Yep.
your early 30s. So,
But it's great. You never have to be in the home for longer than you want to be. You're not stuck, you can sell it, you can leave and get someone else to live in there and rent it. So
yeah,
it's
do that.
always
Absolutely.
flexible.
Yeah.
Well, this was great. Thank you, Carolyn.
Oh, of
Good
course.
luck with, everything. We'll be in touch, of course. And if anyone, has questions, you'll be tagged here in this post, and, you can just send us a DM or comment on this video, and we'll make sure you get your questions answered, for Carolyn.
Awesome. Sounds